going through our March text. We've been talking about all of the events that have happened within the March text, the civil rights movement, the characters, all that stuff, analyzing all of these interactions. So we talked about a new objective yesterday. We introduced it and we went through the vocabulary. Kelvin, can I have you read out our new objective for us, please?
Students will be able to analyze the interactions between individual events and ideas in order to determine the conceptual idea of a text when supported with evidence.
Great. So we went through that yesterday and we figured out what we were going to be able to do by the end of this lesson. But in order to do that, we had to go through the vocabulary. So let's do a quick review of the vocabulary we went through yesterday to make sure that we can find these things when we're going through our text. So Jamarion, can I have you read out our first vocabulary word up here that we went over yesterday?
Individual.
Individual. And what is an individual?
Of or for a particular person.
Exactly. So individual means one. So one particular person. So everybody say individual.
Individual.
Everyone say one.
One.
So we know individual is one thing, whether it's one person or one individual item. Individual is by itself. Very good. Okay, Nadja, can you read out that second one for us?
Event, a thing that happens, especially one of importance.
Okay, so something that happens that is important. So the civil rights movement would be an event, but what else could be an event? Kelvin.
Christmas, your birthday, other people's birthday.
Exactly. So anything that's important that happens, those are all events. So everybody say event.
Event.
Okay. And our next one, Zachary, will you read out our third vocabulary word, please?
Idea, a thought or plan of action.
Okay, exactly. So an idea is a thought or a plan of action. We all have ideas, right? How many of you have had an idea before? Okay, good. Don't have to worry about anybody. So idea. So everyone say idea.
Idea.
Great. Okay, and our last one, Domingo. Can you read out that last one for us?
Action over.
Right, action or influence. So yesterday we talked about how all of these things interact with each other, and sometimes that makes up a story, right?
Yes.
Okay, so everyone say interaction.
Interaction.
Everyone say event.
Event.
Everyone say individual.
Individual.
Everyone say idea.
Idea.
Okay, very, very good. So now we've reviewed our vocabulary words. So I want you to open up your books to that beginning page where we learn about the first act in the civil rights movement. Okay, someone give us a quick refresher on what we have read about and what we learned about in this first section, Kelvin.
That they're crossing the Evan Face Bridge and doing segregation.
Yeah, exactly. And what kind of protests are they trying to do? Nonviolent protests. Okay, great. So they go through this whole movement trying to do nonviolent. Is that the same treatment that they were getting for others, Zachary?
No.
No? And so how did they prepare themselves for this?
They practice going into restaurants and
Doing signals.
Doing sit-ins.
they
And,
practice at their, meeting place, like at church, how they were going to get treated by others.
exactly. So they modeled how they might be treated by other people, right? Okay, so we're going to start off by filling in our graphic organizer. So you'll have two sections like this on your graphic organizer. We're going to do one together, and then y'all can do one as a group, okay? So first off, I have up there, what individual do we think we're going to talk about?
John Lewis.
John Lewis, exactly. Okay, now I want y'all to take about 30 seconds of think time and think about one of the ideas that's in here that John Lewis may have interacted with. So think about an idea that comes with this. Okay, I see Kelvin's ready. I'm going to give a few more people a chance to get ready. When you have an idea about the idea, go ahead and raise your hand. Yeah, you can write it. I see pencils moving. Okay, who thinks they have a good idea about what the idea might be? Get a few more volunteers so I know that everyone's getting it. What's one of the ideas in this text that we're talking about?
Civil rights movement nonviolent protest.
Exactly, so it's the civil rights movement and the nonviolent protests. Those are ideas, right? So the idea is this idea of nonviolent civil rights protesting. So let's put that in our idea section. Everybody have that down? Okay, so now let's talk about the interaction. So we talked about how an interaction is the action or the influence. So how do we think John Lewis influenced this idea of nonviolent civil rights protests? What do we think the influence might be? Kelvin, what do you think?
He spread the word.
Okay, he spread the word, so verbally,
Made banners.
yep, made banners so that they could raise awareness. Trinice?
He got people together and did
Yeah, he brought people together. That's huge. That's a huge influence because if he didn't have any people in the movement, would it have worked? No.
Just been him.
Yeah, it would have just been it would have been harder to influence people, right? Okay, so which one of those do we want to go with? Do we think? Which one can we find evidence for in our text in this
Brought people
particular?
together.
Brought people together. Okay. All right, so let's do that. So he was able to bring people together. So the interaction is that John Lewis. Okay, and let's say that he brought people together and also made an example of nonviolence. Because we know when we're reading it that John Lewis never faltered from this idea of nonviolence. Even when it was really, really hard for other people to follow along and when they got discouraged, he continued to be that model. Because it would be pretty discouraging to have to do that, right? Someone tell me how they think they might have reacted if they were in this situation. Go ahead.
I would have added. I would go.
You think calm?
I would swallow them.
Yeah. I mean, that's possible. It would be hard if people were coming at you to not come back at them, right? What about you, Kelvin? What do you think? How do you think you would have reacted? Yeah, because it's discouraging. Can you imagine going into one of these places and trying to only verbally speak to them, and then they're trying to beat on you, and they're not listening to anything you're saying, they're calling you names? That would be pretty tough, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now we know that John Lewis brought people together and made an example of nonviolence. So I want you to look in your text right now and see if you can find some textual evidence. So remember, when we're doing textual evidence, it's always a direct what? Quote from the book. So I want you to see if you can find me a quote that supports this whole interaction that we've come up with. If you think you've found one, go ahead and raise your hand. You only got one there? The whole book feels like too much. Oh, did you find one? Okay, what one did you find? Okay, page 61, so let's look at that one. Which one did you find? Page 61.
It says, after hearing of my sermon in Montgomery, advisor asked to take my picture for art.
Okay, great. And what does that show? How does that show his influence?
When he preached to the church, it shows what he was talking about segregation, and it got all over the state quickly.
Yeah.
And wanted him in art.
Okay, that's excellent because that shows an example of what? Him bringing people together. How does him preaching to a congregation about this show him bringing people together? If he's preaching to a church, what is that showing us?
How he's giving you an influence, trying to persuade you to join him.
Yeah, so he's influencing this whole congregation of people, right? He's the leader of them. He's talking to them, and obviously it held some weight because then what they asked him to do?
To be an art.
Yeah, to be in an article. So that's perfect. So if you want to write that down, our quote on page 61, I'll write the page number up here.